Welcome back to another episode of The Business That Matters. I'm Warren Coughlin, your host, and today's going to be a little bit different than some of the others. We're going to be talking about with someone who is an independent. So we're going to talk about why sales skills matter, humanitarian capitalism, international outsourcing, app development, for kind of a wide range of issues. So I'd like you to welcome Steven Robyn from DivNotes. Steven, welcome. And I've got to correct, that's DivNotes and Trios. And you will describe what all that means in a minute.
Sure. Thank you so much, Warren, for having me. I'm very excited. I've been following as well for a while, so it's been great to get a part of this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So let's actually just start with that, because there are a couple of things you do. You've got Trios and you've got DivNotes, and you do a lot of independent work. So maybe can you just unpack first what you do?
Sure. So on the ground level, I'm a business consultant specializing in operations and marketing, and that is effectively what Trios is. It's my branch of being able to offer those services. And then what I've done is I've packaged them inside of DivNotes, which is my software engineering firm that I work out of. So software development, web apps, mobile applications, and everything in between, the platforms, such as that's all the things we do. And so under the wide breadth of all these different offers is where you'll find me wearing multiple different hats and keeping the glue of all of it together.
Nice. And if you were, I always start these sessions off with just asking our guests to provide one quick bit of advice for listeners who maybe want to make the world a better place in some way, because not everybody can hang out for the entirety of a podcast. So I always like to, if someone is tuned in at all, make sure they get some value right out of the gate. So if you were to tell an entrepreneur, here's one thing you should really be thinking about if you want to have some impact, what would it be?
I think the fundamentals for any good entrepreneur is sales. Ultimately, we are selling ourselves at the end of the day, and being able to sell your ideas to the world, whether there be humanitarian efforts or where you want to improve or have a philanthropic effort, you still got to be able to sell the idea. And so fundamentals is a common thing that I see with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship really is focusing on sales first. Can't sell the idea, well, perhaps go back to the drawing board and reformulate that a little bit to find a way to package it in a way that people want to buy.
I love that. That's great advice. I mean, a lot of people come on here and it's different business skills, but at the end of the day, it's true. You're not going to scale your idea. If you actually want to have big impact, you've got to have a lot of people participating, and you can't do that if you can't persuade people. So I think that's awesome. Now, where did you cultivate your sales skills?
Yeah, so I think I had an amazing entrepreneur who exposed me to a number of different things. I mean, this man had a little bit of everything. He had a Bell telecommunication store, so he was selling internet services, mobile phone plans, and everything in between. He also had a hot dog stand right outside of a Canadian Tire. So believe it or not, at very first, I learned how to handle money and deal with customer service at that hot dog stand. But he later graduated me into a position where I could do door-to-door sales for the Bell store that he had. And that was when I was about 17 years old, walking, miles, it felt like, knocking at every single door in every single suburb and having conversations. Sometimes when the door would slam in your face, get out of here, kid. And sometimes it was a welcomed conversation of how can you save money on my Bell internet? Well, absolutely. Let's have a conversation. So I learned that sink or swim methodology, if you will, at an early age in that experience.
That's funny. One of my first sales jobs was door-to-door encyclopedia sales long ago, when there were such things as encyclopedia sales.
I love that.
It was at a time where there was actually a high crime rate in the area I was knocking on doors on. So it was an interesting challenge.
Got to stay safe, and Yellow Pages can't sell themselves. Someone's got to knock on the door, right? Or whatever, I'm sure it was.
Those experiences, they get you the chops, don't they? Like, you've got to learn to sort of be nice to people, take rejection with grace, keep persistent, all of that.
I think a big one too is getting the marbles out of your mouth. I remember the very first days it was fumbling. I'm representing Bell, and I'm here today to talk to you about Bell. What are you saying? Oh my goodness. Just getting all that out of your communication and trying to limit the unnecessary fluff and get to the point what people want to hear. Again, that's a skill set that I think carries you throughout all of entrepreneurship and any facet of business. So got to sell your idea. Got to start there.
Well, that's great. And I actually want to pause there for a second, because as we go through this podcast, like you and I spoke before, and I'm not blowing smoke. Like, I think you're a gifted salesperson. You talk well, but I think it's really important for people to hear that you started marble-mouthed, that you started uncomfortable doing. You were uncomfortable doing. And so it isn't just, people often have this mythology that salespeople are just born with the gift of the gab. But it is a skill that you have to cultivate.
Yes, that's right. You've got to educate yourself. You have to read the right books. I think you have to learn by doing. There is a little bit of a gift in sales. Some people will say it favors the extroverted. I disagree. I'm an introvert. I turn on the switch to get out there and do what I have to do. When you're in a hunter mentality mindset, when you're to say, I don't know how I'm going to pay for my lunch, you start to look at that conversation a little differently where you have a need. I think sales greatness is born out of need. And then you're right. No matter who you are, how great you are, you always will fumble out of the gate with marbles in your mouth. You won't know what to say. You won't know your script. You won't have the right answers. You won't know how to objectively handle. And when those questions and those comments come back, you're going to get frozen. Uh-oh, what do I do? How do I respond? And I've never had that question before. It's all going to happen. And it's okay. It's part of the process. Keep going. Stay persistent. Stay resilient. And be patient with yourself while you go through the process. You never know the next door that you're going to knock on will lead to the sale until you knock.
So I want to share an experience with you and just tell me if it resonates with you in terms of skills. Because even just saying, skill development is a thing. And this will sound partially boastful, but if people hear it right, it's not, because I actually suck. But when I was first starting to sell, I was struggling. To me, the numbers weren't great. And so the organization I was with, they actually had a sales trainer, sales consultant, and they sent him to go out with me on sales calls. And he wrote back to head office and he said, Warren's the best sales guy you got in the country. And his answer actually pissed me off, because I was like, by definition, it's not what you're saying is not true, because my numbers, if I was good, my numbers would be better.
Sure.
Right. And so it really motivated me. And I went and hung out with some people who were successfully selling. And I realized there was just one or two dials of the tumbler that I was missing. So it's like, you can say someone is a good talker, or they're good at sales or something, but there are actual concrete disciplines, right? Like there's technique. And in my case, I realized that there were two really, really specific techniques that were just lacking. And as soon as I got them, my conversion rate went through the roof. So like, have you had any of those kinds of realizations where it's like, there's that thing, or there's that little tweak that I got to make?
Absolutely. I think about one of the sales leaders that I had when we were door-to-door selling. I mean, we were just a crew of people packed into a van, then we were dropped off in a suburb and we were told, go hit the pavement. But the reality is that I didn't understand that when we were grouped at the back at the van at the end of the day, we all got driven back to the headquarters there, and then we could go home. We always would review, well, how many sales did you have? How many paperwork? We would go through the piece of paperwork that we have for us. The sales lead guy always had 5. He always had 5 or more. And I was shocked. I had 1, I had 2. On a great day, I had 3. So my great day, I would still be nowhere near him. And I had to know, what are you doing differently? We have the exact same script. I've been practicing with you. We've done one-on-ones multiple different times. I'm saying everything you said. He goes, I stopped saying those things. What do you mean you stopped saying those things? I stopped saying them yesterday. Well, why'd you stop saying them yesterday? I'm still working on the old thing. What did you change? He's tweaking small little words. He's changing the delivery. He's changing the order on the fly. And so I think what I noticed was that when you experience sales, you realize the script is your guide. It's not your Bible. And so sometimes in sales, we get too Bible clutching. This is my truth. This is everything I need to know. Not the case, right? And I think that it's more, you want to know when to pull out the right sentence, not to oversell, not to over communicate. If a deal is sold, don't keep selling. I had a tendency to over explain. I wanted to give value to my customers. I wanted to tell them, but if we do this and this and this and that, I'm going to save you an extra $5 a month. And my senior salesperson didn't bother with any of that. He focused on getting the value, getting in and out, and focused on speed. Small, subtle differences that I only revealed by shadowing him again. I asked, give me a day. I'm going to follow you. I'm not going to get any sales today. I'm just going to follow you. Show me how you did this. And I just noticed he was just taking the exact same script I had, but changed the order of operations, changed when he chose to pull out that nugget and when to serve it up and when not to. Brilliant.
Yeah. So it's sort of the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right?
Knowledge and wisdom. That's right.
Yeah.
Again, having the right tools, knowing when to use them.
Yep. Like that, there's an old saying that the difference between knowledge and wisdom: knowledge is knowing that tomatoes a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
Okay, yeah, I like that one. I don't think I've heard that one recently. I really like that way that's served up. It's
Um,
it's funny. It's how nuanced it can be. Sales, yeah.
yeah. So I don't want to spend the whole time on sales, but there is just
Sure.
one last thing I want to canvas with you on this, and it's
Please.
because a lot of people I know, particularly entrepreneurs who are trying to make the world a better place or do something positive for their business, sales feels icky. Right? It feels like, oh, I had a client once. I asked him what he thinks of sales because he was struggling. He's, oh, I think salespeople are manipulative, they're slimy, they're pushy.
Mm,
I was like, so how does that help you grow your business? And it doesn't.
no.
Now, I've always been a believer that sales is actually professionally helping people make decisions in their best interests.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about like the ethical role of sales in guiding an individual or a company in making decisions?
I think that's a really interesting topic. So first, I'm going to unpack this by saying I think unethical sales comes from unethical business practices. Okay. So if, in other words, the business choices and the business preferences start with sell, 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 no matter what it takes, well, then your philosophy of what you're actually pushing is not so much a tool to aid or to help or to guide that customer. What you're really pushing is whatever it takes. And that's a different sales process altogether. I've always focused on an ethical sale. I never wanted to once in my career sell something to my customer that they didn't want. I could help generate the want, the desire, right? That is what a salesperson can do. A salesperson can create demand, but a salesperson shouldn't be forcing demand. And this is, I think, a little bit of the difference. Some people can be manipulators where they are looking to take advantage because they want that extra paycheck. In my experience, focusing on value proposition and focusing on understanding the customer's pain points first has always yielded me more sales through better referrals, better relationships, more long-term focus in terms of the sales relationship. And I believe that there isn't a space in those sorts of relationships to have any unethical sales plays going on. And so I think that's a delicate balance to focus on what are the priorities here. That really does stem, from my opinion, from the business direction itself. I think so. I would say I've always followed a more consulting sales approach, which is, again, focusing on pain points first, uncovering pain points first. And if that means that I have A solution, B solution, and C solution, but C solution doesn't have anything to do with what you want, I'm not bringing up C solution. I'm going to focus on the A or B that is going to be the solution to your problem. And that's how we start the conversation, is uncovering the problem, right? Understanding the customer's pain points, know your customer. Some of these terms are thrown around often in sales, but they are critical, I think, for an ethical conversation and for more long-term client relationship building.
Yeah. And having that long view, I think, is important.
I think so.
Now, so that makes a nice shift. You said that you're referred to sometimes as a humanitarian capitalist or engaging in humanitarian capitalism. Can
Sure.
I use the term business that matters. What is humanitarian capitalism?
I think that the means of production should not be at the expense of the employee. It should be from the contribution of the employee. In other words, that every member of the production team should be able to benefit from the fruits of their labor. And that's, yes, we all have to play a cog in the machine. A sales plays a cog in the machine to produce the deliverable, of course, but that the sum of all the parts equals a greater value, and that the individual parts themselves are not being, let's say, taken advantage of in terms of an ethical perspective, or taken advantage of in terms of a pay perspective, compensation perspective, but also even from the means of production itself in a problem solution offering or a end result that is ethical. And so I believe that the problems that I like to solve in my career are things that make people's lives better, and I don't want to do that at the expense of someone else.
It's hard to feel that you are morally aligned if you're giving on one hand and exploiting on the other.
I think so too. And I think that ingenuity shows, right? And I think that being authentic in sales and being aligned with your customers throughout the entire production life cycle as well, not just sales, is what builds long-term relationships. And honestly, I don't think I've had the success in my career at this point, up until this point, if it hadn't been for those decisions, and always putting that customer first, focusing on, again, are all the pieces of my puzzle together, my team that has to implement, are they all happy as well? And when they're happy, I mean, it's not just happiness, but it's when they're comfortable, when they feel safe, when they know all these things are valued. I've seen output and contributions and, productivity be skyrocketing high just as a result of giving respect and giving the due diligence to every team member's contributions as necessary. And that goes into giving back or being part of some other aspects of philanthropic pursuits. Like I'm always been a proponent of mental health, and I think that shows with not only the donations or my time that I've donated to the CMH Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA, but also to the production of the team I have, that their mental health matters to me. I'm not just practicing it by donation or by my time gift. I'm also practicing by the standard operating procedures within our operations, that we want to make sure our team is heard. We want to make sure that our team isn't not burning out. We want to make sure our team is respected and that they have a voice and that they are a valuable contributing member of our team. And I think the focus on that sort of humanitarian effort needs to happen in every stage, in every level. It's a philosophy. It's not a choice. It's not an end result. It's a process that you take.
And I think that's super interesting. And I've actually interviewed a couple of people here and also some clients who have made a philosophical, ethical commitment to paying above living wage. I've got a couple of clients who their dream is to have every member of their team own their own home.
Love that.
Those kinds of commitments, which is really interesting. And in each one of those businesses, what's super fascinating is they're really profitable. Like the knock always when you raise that is, but that raises your cost and your margins are going to shrink. But the efficiency that people contribute, the innovations that they come up with, like every time I've had somebody tell me that's their philosophy, they're more profitable than their competition. It's fascinating.
It is incredibly fascinating. I wish I really want to say this for this topic because it's right now on the top of my head. I just wish the business company that was this example is coming to my head, but it's not. They offered, the example was they offered free unlimited vacations. By free, I mean paid vacations. So you could take off a month, 2 months, 3 months if you wanted. But what they found was that when they switched from a limited vacation amount to an unlimited vacation amount, there wasn't any significant difference to the amount of vacation days people took off. But yet productivity went through the roof. Well, why is that? When you treat people like adults, when you give them the respect that they deserve, when you respect and value their contributions to the workplace, they're going to work harder, right? And they're going to work more efficiently and they're going to care more. And all these things result in a better product, a better deliverable, and I think happier clients as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There's the knock on that, like the debate that people will have on that, right, is, but there's going to be people who take advantage of you. And I remember this is less on an employment standpoint, but on a marketing standpoint, there's a bicycle shop in the States that does this thing. It's a really cool spot. They've got a cafe inside and all this stuff. And you can come in and take a bike for a ride, and you don't have to leave a deposit. You don't have to leave your credit card. You don't have to leave any ID. Their attitude is just, hey, we're part of the community. You're part of the community. We trust you. We have a relationship. Wow. And do people exploit them? Yep. They say they lose X number of bikes a year to theft.
Sure.
But they say the value that they receive through that far exceeds the value that they lose.
The risk reward was beneficial to make that investment. Makes sense.
Yeah. And so if you do that kind of vacation thing, I've heard of that story before too, and it is really interesting. And are there people who will take advantage of it? Sure. But I'm sure everybody kind of implicitly knows if you're going to be an asshole and you're going to take advantage, you're probably not going to be there for a long time.
I agree. I think you're going to have toxic players in any team. And it is about management to identify those bad apples, right? And let's not spoil the bunch. Let's find a way to either coach them or to replace them. However, if you have a good team, then no one should be the bad apple, right? You might have worse than other apples, but no bad apples. And this is where you want to focus on your A players, your B players, and your C players. I think you want to coach your B players into becoming A players, and your C players, you just hope they get enough time on the field to become B players. It's worth to invest to grow them into becoming the A players. And your A players are where you make your most money. You make your money off of the aces on your team, the stars on the football team, if you will, the star soccer player, the guy who can always come in clutch to win that game with that goal. Those are your A's, and the A's are going to make you the bread and butter money. But the B's are how you invest for the future. And so the ones that steal the bikes, I don't know if they're necessarily any of those three. I think they're just a toxic bad apple that possibly is taking advantage of the system, and you don't want them because they're not contributing in a valuable way anyway.
That's right. Yeah. So let's. I want to hear a little bit about your relationship with DivNotes, because it is interesting. I mean, like, there's probably people like you who are gifted in some skills and they're always looking for a job. But you've carved out a really interesting way of doing this through Trios, and then representing DivNotes or being part of DivNotes, but while retaining independence. So you could just talk a little bit about that structure and how it works.
It's a little unique. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity, but I think to explain how that came to be, I have to explain a little bit of the story, which is when I built Trios, it was me and my business partner knocking on doors again, repeat story, but to find payment processing clients, to find telecommunication clients, except this time I wasn't selling Bell, I was selling Rogers and point of sale terminals and software. And I was selling this to business owners. And I knocked on business owners for, I think, doors for business owners for 2 years. And then my business partner, Ryan, he knocked on just the right door, happened to be a client of a client. And that client became Cluster. It was a marketing technology company. The idea was content distribution, but with rich analytics and tracking. So I was getting into technology now, tech company and tech consulting. So I worked for them as the director of operations. My job was to establish operation procedures, understand the workflows of the company, establish some of those standards, and then also oversee the development. So this is where the segue begins to DivNotes, which is because Cluster had engaged in software development services with this firm called DivNotes. I started getting very embedded into the process and managing the software development team that DivNotes provided to Cluster. And I was the operations director, making everything work to the CEO's vision. I then built a strong relationship. I worked for Cluster for 2 years as director of operations. Eventually, and I think any startup, tech startups particularly, are going to resonate with this, funding runs out. VCs eventually say, no more cash, and that's it. You've bled me dry, and I have nothing else for you. When that happened, of course, the decision was to pull the plug on my salary and to allocate towards marketing spend. And that was fine. I did my job anyway. The operations were solid. Things were running smoothly. We moved from 500 users to, I think we were about 75,000 users before I moved to DivNotes. By the time I was working with DivNotes, I asked them basically, hey, Cluster no longer has a use for me, but do you have any clients that might have a use for someone who could speak to operations, maybe even marketing, anything in terms of setting up those sorts of systems and managing software? And they said, absolutely. In fact, all of our clients could use your skill sets. I said, really, all of them? How am I going to be able to serve all of them? They said, well, work for us through a partnership. We'll partner with Trios. We'll take your time full time as a internal consultant. We'll basically white label you, and we'll work with all of our clients and offer your services through. I said, great. So it's been since 2019 now, so coming up in 5 years with DivNotes in that process and in that capacity. And oh man, lots of really amazing, interesting clients, but it has taught me a lot about how to be creative in the deal structuring. What I've loved about working at tech companies like Cluster is I've been able to creatively establish deals, such as options for Cluster. I believed in the idea. Unfortunately, yeah, the plug was pulled, but I still had options in a lieu of my entire salary. I took a slight pay cut to get those options. Well, I did, roughly the same thing with DivNotes. I believed in them. I knew that they were going to be exposing me to lots of new clients, diversifying my exposure to various different projects, if you will. And I was no longer going to be just one tech company. I could now service many. And in that process, I knew my skills would grow. So I took that leap of faith. DivNotes took that leap of faith in me, and it's been profitable for both of us so far. And I think it was the right decision. But not every creative deal is like that. I think every opportunity is a case-by-case basis, but to keep thinking creatively and how you can work together is an effective step of any entrepreneurial's journey, is that there's always a way to find a win-win opportunity.
Now, So just say a little bit about what DivNotes does, because it's actually fairly
Sure.
interesting, right? It's app development, but it's not. When sometimes people hear that, they think it's a nice little web app or a nice
Sure.
little phone. But you do some
Yeah.
significant things like in the oil and gas industry and things like that. So maybe share a little
Yeah.
bit what that's
I'm
about.
I'm very grateful you brought that oil and gas client opportunity up, because that one I've been working on for over a year and a half now. So DivNotes, we are more than just a custom software development agency. Yes, we build mobile applications, but we work as your software innovation partner. Well, Steven, what does this mean? It means that we work through a collaborative effort. We work with you to understand your vision, even provide value in terms of offering suggestions that could either reduce costs, but yet maybe still land at the same result, or yes, maybe would insignificantly increase costs, but give you a lot more value, a lot more output for the input for your dollar. And we believe in this value-based approach with our clients, and it's worked very well so far. We've worked with Contact Monkey for 8 years now, even though we've been in business for only 10, Homestars for 5, just to name a few. And then more recently in the oil and gas pipeline industry, I don't have the ability to say the name just yet, but it will be on our website maybe in 6 months' time. So I'll say it then. But in the oil and gas pipeline industry, we are dealing with a traditional industry. We're dealing with a little bit more of a slower to adapt industry. And so what was happening is that they have a technology now that's quite dated, quite outdated in terms of its process, quite outdated in terms of what it needs to provide them in their day-to-day operations. And so I've come in now to deal with the digital transformation of that business. We're moving from, long forms in a grid of a tablet now into a tablet that is a bit more intuitive, bigger button styles, ready for people in the field to offline and online interact with the assessment process of investigating the integrity of a weld on a pipeline in the oil and gas line industry for companies like Shell or Suncor or Esso and Petro and the like. And so there's a lot of specific things that need to be addressed to very small degrees of variation. So the specifications might indicate that the tolerance level needs to be 0.2 millimeters within a certain range. Well, the software has to be very accurate, very robust, and very precise to be able to give a report fail or report success on every single piece of equipment, asset, vessel, weld in those sorts of areas and job sites. So it's quite an extensive project, and we like those ones. We like the projects that are challenging. We like solving those problems, and it's been a fun journey so far. I'm very much looking forward to when that one's going to be live. I can't wait to tell that story.
So you've shared that you like providing value, you like providing solutions for people. So what makes DivNotes like the company you want to partner with? Like, do they do things in a unique way, a better way? So it gives you confidence that they're going to deliver to your value.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I was really impressed when I sat down with the CEO of DivNotes. His name is Babak Basseri, and the man has a very large dedication to his clients. Like me, he believes in quality over anything. He believes that integrity must always be established and always maintained with no exceptions. And so when I saw that he had that level of integrity with the clients that would be working with us, remember, it's not just his company, it's my name and our company together. So in that process, it's my reputation on the line as much as it is also his reputation on the line. So when a customer comes to us and they say, well, how much will it take to build? And it's, let's just say $10,000 for easy math for the conversation. Well, that means it's $10,000. It's not 10,500. It's not 9,000. It's not 20,000. It's 10,000. That even means if I have to eat ramen noodles for the week, it's going to be $10,000. The problem
don't knock the ramen noodles.
No, I love ramen noodles, but I'm just saying I'm not going to have a steak dinner this week, right? So it's just a difference of how we're going to align with the client. Our word is our bond, and I think in business, if you don't have your word, you really don't have anything. And I found DivNotes was incredibly dedicated to keeping its word, and this is something to me that I cannot live without. I cannot compromise with that, and it's something that I stand behind, and I will stand behind, I think, for the rest of my career. It's just too important to not match your word with your actions. And so DivNotes was a company that stepped up to do that.
Right. And you said to me in an earlier conversation that like your relationships last a long time there, which is one of the indications of success, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think our average relationship is about 5 years right now. One of the longest ones is 8 years. And again, we're only 10 years old. We just became 10 years old in February, actually. So quite recently, just a month ago. We had our 10th year anniversary, and we looked at it. Contact Monkey has been with us for 8 years of that 10. That's one of the oldest. Now, the average is 5 years. This is just because we become so embedded into the process. We work alongside the CEO, and it's such a collaboration effort when you're in product, when you're in the software solution delivery business, because so much of those visions come from, a quick conversation, quick discussion on what about this? Well, have you thought about that case in this case? And so we show our value in every step of the way in every conversation, and we're constantly trying to bring better ideas to the table to take what the original vision was, but maybe elevate it a little bit more for either marginal cost or no extra cost, just because we found a way to do so.
Now, I'm not sure whether it's a controversial question or not, but I'm going to toss it out there just in case.
All right.
I could hear people. So you're an onshore developer, right?
Yeah. We have both. We have onshore and offshore, but our core team is here in Toronto. That's right.
So a lot of people would say, well, why don't I just, go get the company and pick country X where I can get, labor for 20 cents on the dollar or something and just have them do it. Sure. How do you sort of address that?
How do you solve that objection, which is, a great objection to have? I think anyone would have that question. It's a valid question. So the very first question, I think the first answer to that question would be, well, are we doing a SRED, SRED, scientific research and experimental development? If we are doing some sort of experimental development, well, then you can get 50 to maybe 60% of those costs back to you from the government, as long as it is an experimental development exercise, meaning to say that's here in Canada. That's only in Canada. So we can use our Canadian resources. You can hire us, which is a Canadian firm, and that is eligible. We also have team augmentation. If you really do want control, well, then no problem. We'll give you the resource to control. That means your project manager, your team lead, your product person, your designer, they all have to communicate with that staff member because it's your staff. Now, you get invoiced by DivNotes. DivNotes will be there to manage any issues, of course, but it's really your employee with the benefit of having a flexible term. So rather than committing to that particular role for 12 months or giving a salary, you can work with us for a 6-month term, have a bit more flexibility so that you don't have to take that risk in that particular role for more than 6 months. You can feel them out. And if in 6 months you decide, I want to lock in a year, well, great. Then we can negotiate maybe a more aggressive rate and that employee becomes a full-time person on your team. So step one, SRED. Is there experimental development grants and credits that we can use to pay for that if it is a Canadian resource? Absolutely. Number two, if you do really want control, well, then take control. I'm not going to stop you if that's your philosophy and that's how you want to manage your business. But however, there are a few pros and cons. If you want to take that employee into your own house, that's no problem. But then you're going to have to manage them. You're going to have to service them. You're going to have to give them work, assign them work, and you're going to have to worry about when they don't have enough work or when they have too much work. That's your responsibility. But if you outsource to us, that's our problem. So we can also provide you a flat fee, meaning that you're going to know exactly what it's going to cost to deliver X, Y, or Z. So you have the confidence in being able to do your ROI calculations without having to take the risk of not knowing what that cost is going to be before you get there. If you hire your own staff in-house, you don't know that. You might have to hire 2 or 3 resources for an entire year, and you also don't have the same level of perhaps ability to estimate or be as efficient because we have a much larger team. If I need to, at any given moment, I'm going to put a couple more hands on deck for you just to deliver on time. But if you're managing your own team, the time is yours to manage. So there's some pros and cons there that you might want to consider. And I really would say it's a case-by-case basis because it depends on the scope of the project, the duration of the project, sophistication of the project. Are we dealing with this? Are we dealing with that? Yeah, let's have a conversation. Perhaps we could advise you on what would be best for you, but there are a number of different things there to consider. Is it shreddable? Right? Scientific research, experimental development grants, number one. Number two, team augmentation, how many resources, and there is an ROI calculation there you want to do. And 3, does it make more sense to have the confidence in a phase development with outsourcing, because we can give you a flat fee, we can guarantee it. And if we need more help, we need more hands on deck, we have them. We'll put them in place and we'll get the job done when it needs to be done by.
And there's just some pragmatic things about time zones and all of that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So there's other benefits there of having some resources, yes, on EST, but then maybe also having an evening shift, right? Talk about 24-hour development. There are a number of different things there that could be done. Again, everyone has different variables that are at play. Some it's budget, some it's time, some it's both. And so it's not always a one-to-one relationship. This is interesting in development. I get asked this a lot, which is, Steven, you quoted me 6 months to deliver A, B, and C. Yes, it'll take me 6 months to build A, B, and C. Well, but Steven, what if we doubled up the amount of resources? Could you build A, B, and C faster? So let's say we go from 10 developers to 20. It'll take that 6 months into 3 months? Not quite. You're going to have more chefs in the kitchen than it's actually beneficial to have, right? You can't have 2 master chefs. They're going to be bouncing around each other, and there's just so many different things to do. And things get done when they kind of get done. But the answer is yes, we can speed it up a bit. But when you add in that many more resources, you might take it from 6 months to 4 months, maybe 4.5, but you're not really getting a 2-for-1 sort of deal there. It's not going to be a direct output of time.
One can't have a baby in 9 months, with 9 women pregnant.
You got it. Yeah, exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's not gonna work. 9 people, just can't do it. So it doesn't change the fact that the time is the time.
Yeah. Listen, you've been really generous with your time. Anything else you'd like to share before I got a few little rapid fire questions at the end, but just want to make sure we've covered off anything you want to share with people, your journey, or about Div Notes, or about.
I'll say this. I really want to express to anyone listening that entrepreneurs are amazing people. They get me going in the morning. They're the reason I do this. I love talking to entrepreneurs. Warren, I love these conversations you and I have had, and I love these sorts of opportunities that have come from this career. What's most rewarding for me is, yes, I'm a problem solver at the end of the day. I love to solve problems, but I like talking to entrepreneurs. It's really the payoff I like the most, which is I get to learn things from a diverse set of professionals, masters of their craft. Maybe that I'll never have a certain level of expertise, but oh man, is it fun to chat. So really my thing I do want to say is, if you just want to chat, you don't have business for me, I don't care. I want to just chat. I want to have a conversation with other entrepreneurs. I never know what I might learn in that process. And Warren, I've been learning a lot from you as well. So thank you. Please fire away. Give me the rapid fire. I'm ready.
I'm like you though. I love one of the reasons I do what I do is I love entrepreneurs. I actually believe, I say this all the time, entrepreneurship is one of the most powerful forces for positive social change, and entrepreneurs, what they do matters.
I really agree.
So one decision or action that most helped you get where you are.
One decision or action that got me where I am. Okay, I'll say this. Human capital is the most valuable capital there is. It's not the amount of money I've had in the bank. It's the people that I've invested into in my career and in this business that have led me the best return on investment. So again, human capital is the most valuable capital there is. So the focus, or one of the keys to my success, has been that philosophy, focusing on the people I have around me, choosing people that I want to work with that are smarter than me, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I want to replace myself. I want to duplicate myself with people who know more than me, are more experienced than me, and who have a unique skill set that I don't have. They're complementary to me. And human capital is the most valuable investment I think any business owner can make.
If you had to do it over again, would you do anything differently?
Ooh, I mean, there's a few different opportunities in my career where the golden handcuffs have been dangled in front of me, and that's, I think every entrepreneur's perhaps internal debate. When do I throw in the towel? When do I say enough is enough about being my own boss? It's not really all that worth it. I could just make more money maybe elsewhere because I wouldn't have all these expenses. I don't think I regret it, but it does cross, I think, every entrepreneur's mind. I just couldn't, I think, live with myself if I gave up too early and I threw in the towel. But maybe have this conversation with me in 25 years, and maybe I'm an employee for someone else, and maybe I'm happy. But I think that's one regret I've wrestled with, but I have not quite truly regretted yet.
To thine own self be true.
That's right.
One personal quality that you most had to improve or overcome to succeed.
One So I think there is one particular characteristic or trait that I think stands above all the rest, and it's one that I need to constantly adjust, fine tune, and I'm going to say it: persistence. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. I have been a tenacious, resilient person my entire life. Call that, my upbringing, call that entrepreneurship journey itself. I don't know. But persistence is something that will always be challenged. I think a lot of us in entrepreneurship, business owners, operators, we get tired, we get burnt out, sure, but it's about pushing forward, being persistent and not giving up. And although I've been doing this for a few years now, I see a long career ahead of me where every single year I lap around the sun. I think more and more about persistence, and I just can't give up. I just can't. I know that, and it's too embedded in my personality now to, I think, ever dissipate or disappear. But it wasn't easy at first, right? Yeah. It was a muscle that I had to train. It was a muscle that I had to build, and I had to learn that failure doesn't mean I'm down for the count. Failure means I'm just knocked down, but I can get up again. And so I think that's that trait that you only learn by practicing. And when you hit that wall, keep going.
Yeah. Keep going. What's that saying? Fall down 9 times, get up 10.
You got it. 99,000 ways to, what is it? Not invent the way of the light bulb before you invent the That's one right. way, right? So absolutely. Yeah. Like door-to-door sales, right? You don't know the nine doors of no. It's the 10th one you knock on that you finally got 3 sales for the day and you finally have dinner made. But oh man, persistence. You never know that next door you knock on it until you knock on it.
So that's when you had to learn. What was a natural quality that you had that most contributed to your success?
Natural quality. I think I've always been a person who has aligned well with other people. I've always been a bit of a people person. It's why I studied it in university. In terms of one of my disciplines, I studied business and psychology. I believe that people are, yes, they're your relationships, they're your parents, they're your best friends and all that, but they're also your clients. They're your business partners. They are your employees. You touch people, or you're involved with working with people in everything you do in your life, whether it's making an order to the barista and telling her, thank you very much, have a great day, or it's to the client who's a bit quirky, a bit different, a bit challenged, and perhaps struggling to walk down the path they're trying to get down. But the psychological understanding of people has always been a skill that I think I started with a bit of a gift. My mother was always a bit of a people person. She was in sales as well. And I think I just grew up, maybe it was nurture, maybe it was nature, I don't know, but I always grew up with the understanding that you always had to respect people. And I always, at a young age, was speaking to older adults. I just remember those conversations. So I don't know if that was being an only child or what maybe ever it was. And then I've obviously invested into my education, reading the right books to expand on that skill. But I think it was a bit of a gift that I have nurtured over the years.
Right on. Listen, I really thank you for spending the time. How can people get a hold of you if they want to find you?
They can check us out at divnotes.com. That's divnotes.com. They can hit the contact us button, hit us a message, or email me, Steven, as you think it's spelled with a V, Steven at divnotes.com. Email me. I want to chat. Let's talk. Let's talk business. Let's talk entrepreneurship. Let's talk anything in the tech community. And just because you don't have business doesn't mean I don't want to have a conversation.
Nice. Thanks so much for taking the time, Steve. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure, Warren. Always a pleasure. Great talking to you as well.
Cheers.